So my name is Madan Nathu. I'm a lead program manager for Office Integration team in Dynamics 365. And today we are going to focus on the overall Office integration story that we have with sales productivity, focused on sales. Of course, you know that some of the scenarios that we have for Office integration work for other apps as well. And also I'll talk about a little bit about the relationship insights as well. So when you think about productivity, one of the key pillars of productivity has been Outlook client. How many of you have been using Outlook client, the older COM add-in that we have today, or your customers or who are, or you yourself are using? So quite a bit. So one of the things that we have been doing is we announced deprecation of the Outlook client, and it's going to be the next generation app, which is based on the new Office extensibility model, which is called the Agave app, or it's also called add-in. So now the new term is really add-in from Office perspective. What we call is the Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. So the future is going to be Dynamics 365 app for Outlook and the server-side sync. So if you haven't made the transition, or if you're thinking about it, I would urge you to kind of take a look at the app as well as the server-side sync. So it requires server-side sync. So first you need to think about the server-side sync, and then you need to think about how do you set up or configure the app. And I'll talk a little bit about the things that are going to come in the next release, in the upcoming release of our release, and also of course the app that we are going to I'm going to showcase. The other thing is going to be how many of you have heard about the unified interface or the unified client that we are building? Not many. A lot of people on this side, not many people on this side. So the unified client is going to be the new client, which goes across essentially all browsers and devices. So we have the mobile client today, which works only on devices, phone and tablets. And also we have the browser clients. So we are going to combine all those clients into one single client. So you can build once. So if you are making any customizations, it will flow to all the places, all the devices and platforms and browsers. So that client is going to come out in the upcoming release, and we have a lot of changes from a productivity perspective for that client, because we need to move all our productivity scenarios onto this unified interface. So you will see some of the things around productivity, especially the things around document management and recommendations, what we have done. The second thing is that for about a year or so now, we have the relationship insights feature, and I'll do a deep dive into that. I don't know how many of you have started using it, or kind of previewing it, or can I see a show of hands for RI? Not many people. So I'm going to go through the deep dive on that, and I'll show you some of the architectural details of how we actually bring the data and reason over the data from Office Graph and LinkedIn and Dynamics 365, and how we generate all the insights that show up in Dynamics 365. And of course, the relationship insights also has been moved to the new unified interface. So I'll show you a quick demo of the unified interface for relationship assistant. And finally, I think I'll close out with the roadmap. What are our plans for future? Again, we haven't decided on the dates yet. So be careful when you start communicating this internally within you, if you're a customer or if you're a partner, in terms of when this will land. You may have already seen this slide many times from me, whether I have done the presentation or my manager, Oren, has done the presentation. We always talk about our Office integration story with this slide, really. What it is really showing is how much time the salesperson is spending with the Office tools that we have at Microsoft, and how we can leverage those tools for our scenarios. So that's the one critical point. You have heard about all the story around Microsoft 365, Office 365, and LinkedIn, and how do we bring all those tools, and of course Azure, how do we bring all those tools which are already there at Microsoft, and how do we leverage those tools for Dynamics 365. So this is one of the key slides that we showcase whenever we talk about Office integration story. And one of the ways to think about our Office story or the productivity of the Office 365 is really to kind of look at every single task that the user is doing. Whether you are talking about the tracking incoming email, I saw you guys using the Outlook client, com add-in, and of course now you have to move to the new app. But when you think about what is the principal task that they are trying to do, they are doing tracking and tracking prospect or customer communication. Then of course in the sales process, as they go from qualifying a lead to closing the deal, they really are going through follow-up call with the lead, convert that lead into an opportunity and a contact, then they are taking notes. So when you think about this, every task that they are doing, they're using Office tools. And one of the ways to think about how do we kind of imagine how we build our features is to, through this slide, how do we make it more efficient for the end user to use Office tools, but with the context of CRM, really, with the context of Dynamics 365. So that's why you need that contextual immersive experience. One of the other ways to think about is how do we bring that Office experience within Dynamics 365 itself? And how do we make it more efficient to do those tasks? So it's not just about using Office tools, but how do we make it efficient for them to complete that task? And the second thing is, how do we bring the insights? So one of the stories that you have heard for last year or so, and Microsoft-wide, there has been a big push around machine learning and intelligence and insights. And you will see the story coming up in everywhere where you see, you will find insights in Dynamics 365. And how do we bring those insights to help the end user kind of close the deal, or the salesperson close the deal? And even though I'm giving an example of sales productivity, it applies to customer service scenarios whether you're doing case management and whatnot. So I think you will see that it's all about the Office tools. How do we leverage them, and how do we bring insights into Dynamics 365 so that it's making them more productive or efficient in completing their task. Of course, there are a lot of other scenarios in insights like lead scoring and whatnot. That is what you will also hear from my other colleagues. And of course, one of the things that we have been doing is we are trying to bring all this experience on mobile, as I mentioned about the new unified interface. And Oren over here is going to talk on Thursday about the new unified interface. And he will tell you more about how all this is going to come together on the mobile, on the unified interface in terms of the browsers as well as the mobile devices. And of course, the other thing is, if you're an on-prem customer, please note that we always do our first investments go into the cloud. So all our features or new capabilities that we bring are going to be in the cloud first, and then of course we'll bring it on the on-prem also if you have hybrid scenarios. So that's about the overall Office story, Office 365 story that we have for productivity. Now let's get down into the details of Outlook and what do we do with Outlook and Exchange. So this is kind of the story of our existing. So if you see on the left, you will see really the Outlook client, com add-in, and of course you have the Outlook sync that goes with it. And then we introduced the folder-based tracking. How many of you use folder level tracking? Not many people, just a couple of hands are going up. That's surprising. So folder-based tracking has been available for quite some time now, probably 2 or 3 years. So I think if you have not looked at it, it's rule-based tracking, so you can have both automated, manual way of tracking emails. So certainly you should take a look at that. So for example, if the salesperson is interested in looking at particular account and track all those emails, you can write an Exchange rule, bring that into a folder, and then that whole folder, all the emails within that folder get synced to Dynamics 365. And then of course we have the new app as well as the server-side sync, which we have released for all hybrid scenarios, on-prem to on-prem, and of course the online scenarios. So one of the things to remember is that this is going to be the future. So if you have not made an effort into moving to the app, I would urge you to look at the app, start playing with it, giving us feedback, rolling it out, deploying it. If you run into any challenges, feel free to contact me or my team members. If you know Ben Elad, he is one of our team members. definitely contact us, and we'll figure out what are the challenges that you're facing and how we can address any future roadmap gaps that we may have today with respect to the COM add-in or any other changes that you would like to see in the app. So again, we already deprecated, as I mentioned before, so you should be really thinking about the new app and the server-side sync story. So let's look at so today we already released the app about 1.5 to 2 years back, I believe, and we have been kind of iterating over it, and you will see that. Let's take a look at what we have for the upcoming release. So when you think about the new app and the unified client, what is the value proposition that we have for the app with the unified client? First of all, because the universal client, it's a universal client, it works across browser devices, phone, tablets, whatever it is, right, and platforms. So that's one thing. So if you haven't used it with OA or Outlook for desktop or Outlook for Mac or on Outlook mobile, how many of you use Outlook mobile or you know about Outlook mobile? Quite a bit. That's good. So if you think about Outlook mobile, at least we support right now the received email scenario, and of course we'll keep on investing. We have been working with the Office team to kind of bring more scenarios around Outlook mobile. So definitely take a look at the Outlook mobile as well. The other thing is productive. How do we kind of bring more productivity, and what does a unified client bring to this to the table for this particular scenario for our app? One of the things that you will see is that we bring the complete experience of the sitemap that you see within the browser clients or the mobile clients into the app. So you will be able to do far more scenarios than you could do earlier with the app. Earlier, the app was fairly restricted in terms of what you can see within the app. Now you can actually do edits and whatnot with different types of entities. You can do global search, and I'll go over some of those scenarios. The other thing that we have been doing is we are trying to bring intelligence, as I mentioned before, insights, and the relationship assistant that we have is going to show up now within the app also. Of course, you can make use of those insights eventually for your scenario for the salesperson. The other thing is that it's far more user-friendly, and if you see, the user experience is going to be really delightful. When you look at all the capabilities that we are bringing, you are going to be really delighted with the experience. The other thing is the last but not the least is adaptable. So it is based on the unified interface foundation. What it means is all the things that you see in the client are essentially in the app are nothing but based on the views or things like that within the unified interface. So once you have defined a contact view, for example, you can change that contact view to see something else within the app. So that's the beauty of this, that whatever changes that you do from a views perspective, you will be able to see that data or that information within the app. So it's quite adaptable in that sense. In fact, it will support like custom entities, custom attributes, whatever you have, you should be able to bring that into the app. Of course, one thing to remember, it's all based on the concept of the email item or the item that exists in Exchange. So it's either email, appointment, and contacts. Of course, the contact tracking is a little bit different experience, but for emails and appointments, that's the experience that you will get. So let's look at the first key scenario that Outlook client supported, and of course, we'll support that through the app as well. So track and set regarding. So if you see on the right side, that's the app that is showing within the context of this email from Ali. And what you see is on the top, if you notice, it's not just tracking and set regarding, but there is a whole lot of things that you see on the top. So you can do a global search, you can do sitemap, you can see that waffle, and you can get the whole sitemap through that. So that's the new experience that I was talking about. And of course, the key scenario, which is the set regarding and the tracking that you will see. So the link symbol over there, the link icon that you see, you can actually pick up all the recipients of the email. You can see all the contact information regarding those contacts. And then, of course, you can get all the contact view related information. So if you have a contact view that has like top opportunities or related opportunities, related cases, they are going to show up in that view. And the same thing is true for all the recipients in your, and if you don't have a recipient which is a contact, you can convert that into a contact very easily by using the plus button on the plus icon, and you can actually create a new contact as well. And it will do a duplicate check, by the way. So that's even better, that it's actually verifying that the contact doesn't exist. Of course, if the contact doesn't exist, that's why it is not found in the CRM system in the first place. Of course, you can look for set the regarding value. So you can actually set the regarding value. You can search for it and find out. We'll show you all the MRUs and whatnot, and then you will be able to pick up those from this MRU list, and then you can actually use it to set the regarding for this particular email. How many people are aware of the track and set regarding scenario from Outlook client? Hopefully all hands should go up really, unless you are first time using CRM. But this is one of the key scenarios and the value proposition of Outlook client, and this is how we are bringing it to the app. Surprising that there are a lot of hands are not going up. So either they are not using the Outlook client, or they are for the first time actually looking at Dynamics 365. So once you set the regarding value, it will show the regarding missing parts. So this is this email is regarding the missing parts, and then it's going to show you the regarding case or whatever it is, that information, and of course then the rest of the recipient list will go down in the app. The second key scenario that we didn't have earlier with the app was the global search. So this is very key scenario that we can do now within within the app itself. So of course we didn't have global search or the relevant search before for a long time in Dynamics 365. Now we have global search, and of course we are bringing that capability onto the app also. So you can do the global search by looking at the search filter. You can see all the things based on the Contoso. If you type in Contoso within that box, then you will get all the results for Contoso. You will get like all the filtering capabilities that we get with the relevant search. So you can see, you can filter by different entity types and whatnot as well. One of the key scenarios after you kind of do tracking and set regarding, it's just one thing to kind of track an email regarding either a case or a Contoso or whatever it is, right? But the other thing is the view and edit records. So you should be able to view all these records and then of course edit those records within Outlook itself, within the app itself. So this is what we bring. So you bring the full fidelity that you see in the browser client or in the mobile client onto your onto the app. And remember, it shows up on the Outlook for Mac, Outlook desktop. It will show up on your Outlook mobile as well. So you are able to bring actually the full fidelity of the form within the context of your email, and you can see whether it's an opportunity or a case and whatnot. You can see the whole business process. You can start editing and so on. Again, as I mentioned before, one of the other key scenarios that we want to light up is how do we get the insights? And all the insights that you see, and I'll talk about a little bit about those insights when we talk about Relationship Assistant, how it shows up in the dashboard. We are going to bring that onto the app also. So essentially, you will see all those insights, whether they are insights coming from the email text analytics that we do, to find out if there is a potential lead or opportunity, or there is a opportunity is going to close very soon. Those kind of scenarios where we kind of generate those insights and bring it into Dynamics 365, and then kind of enrich that data with either Exchange or Bing APIs to kind of bring more information regarding meetings and whatnot. So all that information is going to show up within the app, and it's very handy for you, so you don't even have to switch to our mobile client or our browser client. So that's kind of what is coming with the upcoming release. Now let's look at all the things that we are planning to do from a roadmap perspective. Again, It's like our quantum computer that Satya talked about. You see it, you sometimes see it, you sometimes don't see it. So be careful what we show over here when you communicate internally within your team. Of course, this is on our roadmap, and if you have any feedback, feel free to give us feedback so that we can kind of improve, make changes to our plans and whatnot. So the first scenario is, of course, accessibility is one of the key pillars for our future release, not this release, but the future release. And of course, we want to bring all that experience of accessibility, whatever we can do from an accessibility perspective. Are there any public sector customers or partners over here? Just a couple of them. So if you're a public sector, this is a fairly important consideration for your customers. So definitely that is one of the key things. The second thing we are trying to do is both the contacts and tasks. How do we bring that into the app, and of course bring accessibility with that? And then the last but not the least is, how do we bring the contextual dashboard that you saw with the relationship assistant? If we can get more data, for example, from LinkedIn or any kind of social graph and so on. The other thing that we have been doing for the upcoming release, it's actually, it may be available in this release itself, if I'm not mistaken, for Android devices. So we'll support Android devices on the Outlook mobile, I believe. And then, of course, we are thinking about the mobile support for contacts and tasks within the mobile app itself, not necessarily our app, but the mobile app. So that's the other thing that we have been kind of thinking from a roadmap perspective. Other key pillar of this strategy to move away from our Outlook client COM add-in is the server-side sync. And we have been kind of doing some investments into server-side sync from a reliability and scalability perspective also. So one of the big gaps that, I wouldn't say a gap, but it's really a feedback that we received, especially for our online customers. How many of you are online customers? Quite a bit, but still like 20, 30%, 40% maybe. So for our online customers who are on O365, because we do a handshake with Exchange Online for server-side sync, we need to make sure that the Exchange administrator is on board when you do the server-side synchronization. And that's why we had a way to kind of get an approval, and CRM administrator has to be an Office global administrator to kind of approve those mailboxes. So what we have is now it's the O365 admin approval is not required. You can actually approve the mailboxes as a CRM admin as long as the email addresses that come to us from O365 online system are the same as what we see in our user's profile. So that's the key thing, that those email addresses have to match, then only it will be auto-approved. Also, we had like a lot of feedback around test and enable the mailbox UI, whether it reflects the current state or not. There was a little bit of a challenge over there for our customers, and we have done a lot of work around that to kind of help you have a better experience to know, get visibility into all these mailboxes and whether they are enabled or not and so on. The other thing that we have done is our alert wall is also, we have done ways to kind of debug into the alert wall also, so that you can actually see a lot of information that administrators could use to find out why certain emails didn't get synced. But there is a lot of work to be done. For example, from a roadmap perspective, we don't handle today BCC or undelivered emails, those kind of scenarios, and we definitely are looking at those scenarios from a server-side sync perspective and how we can improve that experience. One of the other things from a scalability perspective that we have been doing is really around overall server-side sync redesign. So we have been kind of, if you know on the left, that's the current architecture that we have. We have the CRM or the Dynamics 365 OggDB, you have Exchange Server. It goes through the async server to kind of do the synchronization of data between Exchange and OggDB. Of course, it goes through the CRM runtime. And then one of the things that we saw, especially in online, and of course it can impact on-prem also, but on-prem you have a lot more control in terms of how do you deploy your async service and whatnot. but we saw that the org-DB has been a bottleneck, as well as there is a potential CPU utilization bottleneck, because several other jobs are also running on the async service. And how do we make it more reliable, how scalable, and keep it performant? And that's why we are moving towards this new architecture that is going to get deployed soon. If you are interested, we are actually going to do a private preview of this new server-side sync redesign. And we are going to roll it out. If you have thousands and thousands of mailboxes, if you are in the range of like 15,000, 20,000, or 50,000, then certainly you should be looking at this redesign, which brings elastic scale and, of course, better performance in how we kind of reduce the utilization of the org-DB. How do we make use of this data sync framework that we have released recently, and of course some of the Azure services that we are building, so that it will help to kind of keep it scalable and reliable and performant. One of the other things I mentioned is the productivity update. So it's not just about the app. We also have rest of the productivity scenarios. And one of the key scenarios, of course, there are other scenarios like export to Excel and whatnot, and Skype, and all those things are coming on the unified interface. But one of the cool things that we have done is with the document management in terms of how do we show recommendations. And we have simplified that experience, as well as we have made it so easy for you to actually look at the recommendations in the context of the documents that you have for either a particular opportunity or any entity record. And that's what we show it over here. We have a carousel view that can actually show all the document recommendations in the context of that opportunity and all the other documents that you already have. And then, of course, we didn't have create scenario or the edit scenario on the mobile devices. So we are going to support create, upload of the documents on our mobile devices as well. So you see this on the mobile, on the phone, but of course it is available on all form factors. And I'll show you a demo of that shortly. Yeah, so let's actually look at that scenario over here. I'll show you first on the tablet, and then I'll move to so this is the relationship assistant that I'll show you later. So let me actually go back to so this is how many of you have seen the unified interface? You'll see more of it on Thursday, but this is the kind of how you access the sitemap. I'm going to go to the opportunity grid or the opportunity list, and once you see the opportunity list, once it shows up, then I'll click on this Northwind printers opportunity, and then you will see all the business process and everything within the template experience. And you see the timeline over there. One of the tabs on this is the related. You click on the related, and then you get to the document management, just like the way that it was for our browser clients and also our mobile clients. And then you can see this experience of Northwind printers, proposal draft, code. So all these different documents, codes or proposal documents that the salesperson may have within this experience for this Northwind printers. And then, of course, you can do a new or upload. So you can create a new document, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or you can upload an existing document that you may already have, and so on. And all the other things that you can do with document management essentially are available with this. One of the coolest things that you can see over here is this experience of recommendations that you see in the context of the opportunity and in the context of the rest of the documents that you already have. So essentially, by the swipe of your hand, you can actually see all the recommendations. And how are we getting these recommendations? These recommendations are using Azure Search and our global search, our search engine, essentially to find out, looking at all the other opportunities with similar characteristics. And you can set it up using our similarity rules, where you can say whether it's based on geos or whether it's based on other products that were sold at this account or the account, and then figure out how similar this opportunity is with respect to the other opportunity. And then you can get all these recommendations over here, and with the swipe of the hand, you can see all the recommendations. And then, of course, you can do a plus, and it will get added, and it will show up on the document management grid. Voila! It's all done. No claps? So this is the experience with document management and the document recommendations. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by later and then we can discuss more about it. So let's switch back over here now. So this was one of the studies that was done at Harvard. It's a 75-year-old study, and it's all about what makes a good life or what makes people happy. And the lessons from that study are pretty amazing. I mean, you would think that they are looking at people getting rich or famous, or they want to have wealth or power or whatever it is, right? And this is Robert Waldinger is the director of that study, and he is at Harvard. And what he has done is, really, he has a TED Talk. You should actually take a look at that after this session if you're interested. It's a fairly interesting TED Talk. And he talks about how millennials are actually, when they are asked this question, what do you want to see? What are your goals in life? 80% of the people say that they really want to get rich. And additional 50% say their second goal in life is to get famous. So I think they should watch Rich and Famous, I guess, on the TV show. So one of the critical things of the study, one of the key conclusions from the study is really this. Good relationship keep us happier and healthier. And it's all about relationships. And it's no different for a salesperson, or for that matter, any kind of a customer engagement, people who are involved in that process, whether it's marketing or customer service. You want to make sure that your customers are happy. You have a good relationship with your customers, really. And this is what you heard from, whether it's James Phillips or Satya. They have been talking about this Office graph or a Microsoft graph that we have with Dynamics 365, Office 365, LinkedIn. That's where all those relationships are hidden. And how do you reason over this data? That's the key thing that we have, and this is what we are doing in our Relationship Insights feature. To bring all the insights, and of course, right now we don't necessarily have all the data sources like LinkedIn, but we are focused more on Exchange. But eventually you will see a lot of data coming from all the data sources as well. And this is the future from when you think about insights. How do you look at sales? It's not about transaction, it's all about insights. How do you make them efficient or productive by bringing those insights at the right time? One of the things that we have done, the first thing that you see is auto data capture. Actually, we have very low usage of this feature today. It's still public preview, of course, and it's going to be public preview for some time. But one of the challenges that we see is that we don't know why the auto data capture feature has such a low usage. So if you're not using it, I would urge you to kind of go back and look at the auto data capture feature. What it is really trying to do is, it is looking at Exchange data, and I have actually a slide that does a deep dive within this to how we bring that data into CRM. So you have emails. Often, salesperson, really their job is to close a deal. They are not really interested in kind of trying to figure out how do I enter the data. You heard James Phillips talk about it. So they are all interested in actually closing a deal, and then they don't want to enter all that data. But we want to make sure that all the interactions that they are having, we can bring them into Dynamics 365. And this auto data capture is nothing but about that, really. How do we bring the emails, appointments? How do we map it to the CRM entities automatically and bring that data into CRM so that they don't even have to use the app if they don't have to, because the data is already there in CRM when they are looking at it. And we are just touching the surface over here. We are just scratching the surface. We can bring data from Skype for Business, calls that you make. You can bring in data from LinkedIn activities that you're doing. So there is a lot of potential over here in how we can do the automated data capture. One of the cool scenarios could be we can be looking at the email signature and bringing and trying to figure out if this contact already exists. We can map it to the existing contact information. If it doesn't exist, we can update it. If the contact doesn't exist, then we'll create it. Or if it exists, then we can kind of update the record. So there are definitely a lot of good scenarios. The second thing, which is also one of the key scenarios that we have, which is in private preview. So if you're interested, get back to me after this session so that we can enroll you into this private preview program, which is about relationship analytics. So you want to bring all these different types of data that you saw earlier on the picture, and you want to do data mining or reason over that data, and this is the way to do it. And it shows you kind of a relationship health score, and I'll go over that in a deep dive in a slide later. And of course, how do we kind of keep the salesperson on top of the relationship and uncover any new ones if any of the opportunities are in trouble and whatnot. The third important thing is the email engagement, which is kind of all these other scenarios that you see over here is really from your perspective. You're trying to figure out if the customer, how you are doing with the customer, whether you are engaged with the customer. And it's often useful from a sales manager perspective to do sales coaching and those kind of scenarios. But when you think about email engagement, it's all about your customer's interaction with the salesperson. So if the salesperson is working with the customer and the customer opens an email or opens an attachment in any email, or if they click on a link within the email, we track all those activities and bring that as insights to the salesperson. And that's how they know that the customer is engaged, so that they know that what is the best time to connect with the customer when they open the email or they open an attachment, or they may be stuck on a particular quote within the attachment that you have for the quote, and you want to give them timely information. So those are the kind of scenarios that are enabled through this email engagement. And then of course, last but not the least, and kind of the crown jewel of all these features is the relationship assistant. The world is moving towards virtual assistants, smart assistants. You will see it talked all over the place. And this is our kind of a way to kind of bring all those insights, whether they are coming from Exchange or coming from using Bing information, and bringing that all from of course Dynamics 365, and bring all those insights into the relationship assistant. As I mentioned before, again, how does it translate into unified interface? So this is kind of the experience that you will see on the unified interface on the dashboard, or whether it's a form within the opportunity or whatever, you will be able to see the same kind of insights. And of course, there is a way to access this through a global navigation bar also, and I'll show you a quick demo of that. One of the other things that we saw is on our grid, you don't often get a lot of information to kind of how do we focus on different records that you have. What are the key opportunities that you want to focus on? So you may have seen the bubble chart that we actually introduced with our web client or the browser client. And of course, it's not available today in the unified interface, but it will be available in a future release. But one of the other things is on the grid itself, how can we show what are the key opportunities that you want to really focus on? And that's how we kind of bring it. We bring the presence, of course. And now the Skype presence is actually going to be across all browsers. So this is one of the key changes that we are doing. We are no longer using the ActiveX control. The new Skype for Business integration uses a new JavaScript control that works across browsers. So you'll be able to see presence and contact information for a user or a contact across. Of course, the contact also has to be on the Skype for Business, so that there has to be a federation. But other than that, think about relationship analytics, the trend that you see with the health, whether the health is going down or going up or steady, whether what are the key opportunities that you really want to focus on, whether there are some red opportunities or yellow opportunities that you want to focus on. And this is all based on the health score that we compute based on all that relationship analytics. So you'll be able to see a lot of this cool stuff coming onto the grid, and it's not just for relationship analytics, it's useful across for the unified interface. Let's do a quick deep dive into some of these scenarios. So one of the key things that we have been doing is on the relationship assistant. One way to get that is we are working with the Office team You may have heard this term, Office Substrate. So think of it as an infrastructure platform that Office provides us. What they do is, whenever the incoming email comes, we look at they do email text analytics on the body of the email, find the intent. So they detect an intent, let's say whether a lead or an opportunity. They stamp the intent on the email in extended properties or custom properties. And once it is there, we pull that data for all our users if their emails are stamped with that intent. And then we correlate with CRM and figure out whether it's for a particular lead or an opportunity or a new lead or a case. So essentially that's what we are doing. But the other way to this can be done in isolation. But the same thing can be done, we do with the Dynamics 365, look at all the Dynamics 365 data, do data mining, reason over that data, generate insights, and push it back into our clients. And that's how it will show up. But this is still in silos. Instead of that, what we are doing is, we are doing even better. When the client requests new insights, essentially we are doing the same thing, but we correlate all that data with Dynamics 365. So what you see over there in the arrow in the left over here, before email and the exchange, is get substrate insights and correlate them with Dynamics 365. That's the key thing, because we have to correlate that information with Dynamics 365, and then of course enrich that information. So if you have an appointment, and if you have attendees, external attendees, you want to find out about the account and all the things. So we use Bing APIs to pull all that information about the news about the account and whatnot, and then show that within the context of the appointment that you may have. And then of course, once you enrich all that with the web content, then it flows into the relationship assistant. In future, we are thinking about how do we take it further. So one of the things that we are doing with the Office Substrate is how do we get to know who knows who kind of scenarios. So I want to know if I want to have a sales team, I want to build a sales team, I want to find out what are the sales team members, or I want to find out if there are external stakeholders that these team members may know, or people inside my company may know. So it is all brought through this connection graph that we have been working with the Office Substrate team or the Exchange team. And then of course, we are trying to figure out how do we extend this, not just for sales, but for other scenarios. We do have some scenarios in case management from an issue detection perspective for Relationship Assistant, but how do we take it further to other scenarios, other apps, and of course generalize this. So think about it, at the end of the day, all these insights are for the email. But if you think about it, it's all about looking at that email and the body and the text. Eventually it's all text. So whether it is chat, notes, voice, vision, all the scenarios, once they get converted into a text, we are just doing text analytics and getting those insights, and even a document for that matter. So you can generalize this for all the scenarios, and then we can bring much richer experience or richer insights into the app. But this is again future, so remember the quantum computing. So the other scenario is the auto capture. So the auto capture is where what we do is, to get the activities data, we of course can go to the Dynamics 365 database and get the activities data. But one of the key things is, how do we correlate the emails from Exchange to this activities data, which is what I was talking about earlier. So you need to correlate, we have to do a match with contacts or accounts or leads and whatnot, and then of course, then bring that into the relevant entity record. So that's how but now this is only about emails. If you want to bring, let's say, Skype for Business data, we can bring in future LinkedIn data. Or of course, we can bring in information about, as I mentioned, email signature scenario or a meeting scenario, and so on. The third one from a deep dive perspective is the relationship analytics or the health. And often people say that, oh, I don't understand, this is a black box, what are you trying to do over here? It's all done through quantum computer, by the way. So what we do is, essentially we bring the data from Dynamics 365 and Exchange Mars. Just kidding, of course. So Dynamics 365 and Exchange Mars, we bring that into a service that we have called DCI, which is going to be completely transparent to the users, to your administrators and users in future. And once we bring that, we calculate all the KPIs that are like response rate and response time and how many emails that were sent by me, by my team, to my customer, to the whole account team and all stakeholders. All different types of slicing and dicing of data that you can imagine is brought through. And then we normalize those interactions, because everything has to be a single unit if you have to compute a single score. So essentially we normalize that to time, essentially. So the email, how much time you spend reading an email, we kind of use the same kind of empirical formulas that Office uses. If you know about My Analytics, which is already released now. So it's My Analytics does this only for internal team members within your team, within your corporation. While this one is actually looking at data from CRM perspective with your customers and all your interactions with your customers. Of course, there is a configuration thing that you can assign weight for different types of interactions that you have, whether it's email interactions or whatever it is. And then, of course, once you assign the weight, you kind of, we apply something called a time decay function. The key thing to remember is all recent interactions are far more valuable than the interactions that you had in the past. So we want to kind of give a heavier weightage or exponential kind of a weight to the recent interactions, and then we apply this time decay function. And then we, of course, compute the health based on all this information. So that's the quantum computer for you guys. It's all qubits over there. So once you have that, it shows up in the relationship health, and you can use this. But one thing to remember is often people will say that, why is this score so important? Score, don't look at the score, look at the trend for the score, whether it is going up and down. So it will give you a sense of whether it is going up and down. Based on that, you need to make a call really, whether these are the right opportunities for you to focus on. One of the key things that we can do in future is bringing LinkedIn data, bring in Skype for Business data. By the way, one of the things that this was in private preview earlier, it's still going to be in private preview, but we are bringing a lot more capabilities now with Exchange Mars data. Mars is a big data platform that Exchange has, and we are using that Mars platform to bring data. If you attended an Exchange online session, you probably heard about that. So we are bringing all that data into our relationship analytics service and building that analytics on top of it. So it's really bringing a lot of rich Exchange data as well. One of the other things is that even though we have relationships, it may not be positive. So you don't know whether these are positive relationships or not. So if you see on the bottom over there, customer sentiment. So how can we think about customer sentiment in future? So that it is really whether you know whether there is a positive sentiment or negative sentiment. How do we use this into calculating relationship health in future and so on. So those are the kind of scenarios. One of the other things is that often in the sales team, you will get measured against somebody else. And that's true not just in sales teams, everywhere, right? So you want to have organizational benchmark so that you can do sales coaching based on that. If you know that for a particular set of opportunities or particular account, you had a lot of interactions and that helped you to close the deal, then you can actually see those benchmark based on the relationship health that you had for those opportunities, and create those benchmarks for people or based on accounts and whatnot, and use that information to do your sales coaching also. So these are all future scenarios, definitely, but we have starting with the relationship analytics health and score, and that will help you to kind of identify the key opportunities to focus on. The email engagement is another scenario. Essentially, user sends an email, but what we do is we embed a transparent image within the email itself. Then we kind of redirects the links that are there in the email through Azure, so that whenever a user clicks on the customer that is receiving that email, when they click on that email, it is actually going to go through a redirect URL. The other thing that will happen is all the attachments are also moved to OneDrive for Business. So whenever they open the attachment, we get data from OneDrive for Business whether the attachment is open. And these are very key scenarios. Whenever they open that, maybe they are actually going to do some annotations on your documents, and you want to know about it, whether they are changing something on the annotating on your document about a quote, so that you can kind of respond immediately to the customer. So once you have this email delivered, then you have the template. We use a template, email template, So we can do actually template analytics on top of it, and I'll show you in a bit. So open, link, click, or attachments open, those are the KPIs that we compute through this RI service fabric. And once you have this, we collect all the statistics, and then of course do template analytics also based on which templates were used or which templates were responded better for emails and so on. And just like what you will do in a marketing campaign, though this is not for a marketer, this is primarily targeted at salespeople. And then of course we kind of bring that information in relationship analytics KPIs and health, because email engagement KPIs are part of the relationship health or the relationship analytics, because that actually tells you how your customer is engaged with you and how are your relationship with your customer. And then of course we can recommend email templates based on that analysis that we do when a customer is writing, when the salesperson is writing a new email. So let me show you a quick kind of a demo. And this time, last time I forgot to show you on the browser, but I'll show you on the browser also. Browser, or actually on the device, on the browser client, though it's not a web client. So let me switch over here. And just like what you saw, I showed you earlier, it's very simple to kind of get this global navigation bar. So you click on this ... and then when you click on the relationship assistant, wherever you are, you'll be able to see this global navigation bar, and you can actually look at all the insights that it is generating. And you have seen this before, it's nothing different. You click on this, on this, actually it will show up on the, let me see if I can open the email. So if you open that activity, that was it was an email reminder card. So in email engagement, we do something called email reminder also. So you get a reminder about any opportunity that if they haven't actually looked at your emails and whatnot, you want to get a reminder about that. And then once you have that, you can get this email engagement also over here. So you can see all the email engagement related statistics in terms of whether the customer, whether your customer opened the email or not, how many times there were attachments viewed, or how many links were clicked, and so on. And then you can see the, sorry about that. So you can see all the activities also related to that in a timeline fashion. So this is the kind of an email engagement kind of a scenario that you see. Also you can, let's go back to the opportunity and I can show you how it shows up in the form also. So let's say I want to open this on a, so you can see the relationship assistant being shown over here. And this is more of a swipe kind of a scenario in mobile. So if you are on a phone, you'll be able to see the relationship assistant. Remember, this relationship assistant is actually contextual to that opportunity. So it's not a global thing that you saw earlier, even though global thing was across all entity records, while this is contextual to that particular opportunity. And that's why you see that email reminder. And again, you can go through the email reminder to find out what is this reminder about, and you can see how the customer is engaged with you through that email engagement statistics. So that's kind of a quick demo of relationship assistant and relationship analytics. We don't have anything for relationship analytics actually. Right now it's still in private preview, but if you are interested, please get back to us and we'll kind of figure out how do we enroll, how do we get you into that preview. So this is kind of the timeline we released in fall last. We started with the public preview. We are going to continue with the public preview. We have some plans that we want to kind of get more feedback, things like auto data capture and whatnot, and then kind of figure out how do we get into GA. We have to do work also from accessibility perspective and so on. And once we have that, and for all languages and whatnot, it's actually all completed, except that we are waiting for feedback so that we can actually change this into GA. The other is the private preview for relationship analytics that you see over there. So that's, and the other important thing that I showed you, this is all on the unified interface. So it's going to be available with the unified interface in the upcoming release. So that's for relationship insights and 27 update. Now let's look at finally the roadmap. What are we on the roadmap? So one of the key pillars when you think about office productivity is really think about document management, document collaboration, and of course the document generation. But one of the other key pillars is communication. So how do we do communication through Skype for Business and whatnot, really? And then collaborate, which is one of the key pillars of office productivity also. We have done investments in this with O365 groups, or we are planning to do investments with teams and so on. And then of course, how do you get enlightened? How do you get insights, more and more insights for a salesperson, for that matter, any Dynamics 365 person? And this is one of the key investments that we are going to do. As I mentioned before, we are replacing the ActiveX control that we have, and we are trying to bring an immersive experience. And again, I'm just going to kind of wave through this right now. We are thinking of bringing an immersive experience. You will be able to do chat, audio, video. If you use Outlook, you can see that there is a panel that lights up when you start a call. Of course, you have to be in O365, not in on-prem customers. And then, of course, there are a lot more scenarios from a customer service perspective or even a salesperson perspective in terms of incoming call. You want to show a screen pop-up. You want to kind of do a match with the existing contacts or leads and show that information. You want to bring all call analytics, insights from the call, and there are a lot of cool scenarios around insights in this space as well. There is a lot of work that we have been kind of trying to do with our Microsoft Teams. How many of you use Microsoft Teams? Quite a bit. Impressed. 50% almost are using Microsoft Teams. How many are using Slack? Some of you are using Slack as well. Okay. So I think Microsoft Teams is kind of a future of collaboration for us at Microsoft. So of course, we are going to invest into bringing that context into CRM. How do you do collaboration either in Teams, in Dynamics 365, with that data, whatever chat conversations that are going on in Teams regarding a particular entity. You show CRM context in Teams. We can bring chat updates. We can show full chat experience in future sometime. This is more like a 2-year roadmap. So that you can actually get all that chat. Think about like the Skype for Business experience that you have. Eventually, all this is going to get merged into collaborate and communicate kind of a way. So when you think about collaboration, communication is really part of it. So it's all going to get unified into one single experience. And then get insights. So as I mentioned before, it's really about taking this to apps, third-party apps. So we have like customers like DocuSign who are kind of looking for this kind of scenario. How do they use this to kind of when they are doing document signature or Adobe, how they want to kind of extend this for their scenarios to bring the relationship assistant or relationship insights. Of course, how do you generalize it to chat, voice, vision, as I mentioned before, or what we call connection graph, which is who knows who kind of scenario. To bring the right team members who know about external contacts. We look at the whole graph, and we have been working extensively with the Exchange team on this. And then, of course, enriching auto data capture or relationship analytics with different data sources. It could be Skype for Business data, or LinkedIn data, marketing data, interactions, all those things. Very good question. So the question is on the roadmap, this is for online. Do we have this for on-prem customers? Right now, whatever features that we have, eventually it will come to on-prem also. So in terms of what we delivered for relationship insights, and some of the features on relationship insights are already available. Like for example, base cards you can get on Relationship Assistant, you can get it on CRM on-premises also. But eventually all those scenarios will come but some of these scenarios require Exchange Online. So it's very difficult for us to kind of do anything unless you have Exchange Online also. And Office, unless they have plans to kind of do this for their Exchange on-prem customers, it will be fairly difficult for us. But some of the scenarios which are in our control, definitely will be able to kind of support on-premises customer in terms of communication and whatnot. But collaboration kind of scenarios, again, Microsoft Teams is a service, it's online only. So I think that those are the kind of scenarios where it will be difficult for us to kind of bring it into but some of the things like activity feeds that we have, we'll keep on supporting activity feeds that we have today on the unified interface. So you should be able to use the collaboration platform that we have natively within Dynamics 365. But beyond that, I don't really have anything. But export to Excel and all those scenarios are available for on-prem customers, and that's not going to change in any substantial way, really. We'll try to kind of, once we do some more improvements around that, we'll let you know whether we'll bring it. The other thing from a release perspective, it's still not kind of finalized in terms of we are still in a planning phase. So the upcoming release is online only, but we'll communicate in terms of when all these features come to our on-prem customers. Hopefully next year to 2018, hopefully they will be available for our on-premises customers. Not necessarily all our features, but some of the features may be available to our on-premises customers. Correct. Correct. So the question is that will you see the same features in the next 2 years, what I showed you? It could be a subset of those features. Of course, they will show up in online first, and then they will show up for our on-premises customers. So that's it. Let's take a Q&A, and then of course you can do an evaluation. Again, as my manager Oren says, if you're not giving a 5, don't bother. Okay, can you please come over here? God, let me see. Let's take the questions first, and then we can. Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of GDPR, how will that work with the relationship assistant?
So we are go through all the compliance-related things that we have for relationship insights. So in particular, there are a few things around email engagement that could be kind of a concern in Germany and some of the other countries. So we are already, even before GDPR, we are already looking at GDPR compliance, not GDPR, from a compliance perspective for all these scenarios. And there could be, we have features to disable, so you can disable the features if you are concerned about how the data is coming in. And it is in the same compliance boundary, because especially if you're an online customer, then O365 and CRM are all in the same compliance boundary, so it should be fine. But only if it is leaving the compliance boundary, then there could be some challenges. But we warn you, if it is going to leave the compliance boundary, if you are using any Azure services that may not be fully compliant, but we are also going through the process of actually getting them compliant as well. But from a GDPR perspective, we are doing extra effort to figure out how do we, not just for relationship insights, but for any feature. There is a company-wide effort, not just for Dynamics 365, but company-wide effort to figure out what are the things that, how do we facilitate making it easier for you to work with your customers to kind of make sure that if they are concerned about their data and privacy of the data, and how do we give them access to that data, whether it's consumer data or even whether it's a corporate content that may have some customer content and whatnot. So, or any other data like telemetry, for example, where we may be actually storing some information, or cache, we may have a cache from performance reasons. So we are looking at all this gamut of things from a GDPR perspective and making sure that we are compliant. And hopefully by the time the GDPR regulation is in effect in May 25th, 2018, hopefully we'll have GDPR compliance as well. Any other questions? Okay. So we are early, I guess, or we are just on time. Oh, no, we are early actually. So if you have any other questions, feel free to stop by and give me feedback, or if you want to deploy the app or server-side sync, let me know.